Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here at long last with the Capriccio box of all of the non-Mozart, or mostly non-Mozart, non-Mozart, Sándor Végh recordings that he did for the label. I mean, there's a lot more Sándor Végh out there, aside from, of course, his work with the Végh Quartet. There's unbelievably marvelous stuff on Orfeo. I mean, I have some right here. Here's one. I mean, I could just reach up and grab it. Particularly Haydn. Haydn Symphonies 39, 60, and the Sinfonia Concertante 105. So this is live stuff primarily, this stuff. But most of this stuff is not live. It's dead. No, what I mean is it's studio stuff. And it's marvelous. Absolutely wonderful. It's with, of course, the Camerata Academica des Mozarteums Salzburg and soloist of the International Musicians Seminar, because Végh was, of course, an astoundingly wonderful teacher for most of his later career. And he was an amazing musician, a musician of extraordinary warmth, humanity, intelligence, and just a great, great artist. I can't think of anything he did that was really not good. There may be some things that were a little sleepier than others, but on the whole, he was a master at what's the word? Just making textures come alive, even in classical pieces where you have a melody and everyone else is just going chicka 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 chicka. He managed to create a sort of vibrancy to the sound, number one, and number two, he knew how to phrase a melody. He knew how to give the tunes that vocal singing quality that is the basis for classical period musical aesthetics and everything, frankly, that came after. I mean, he really was extraordinary. And we have in this box 6 discs covering a wide and very interesting range of repertoire. First, let's talk about what we have. We have Beethoven's String Quartet, Opus 131, arranged for string orchestra, and the Grosse Fuga, which was its original finale. Really an absolutely fabulous, marvelous, incredible performance. And of course, Beethoven string quartets on string orchestra are not new. I just did as Dave's faves, a box of them on BIS, and of course Bernstein did some, and Previn did some, and all kinds of people did some of them. But I think Végh is bringing to the music his experience as a great quartet player, one whose versions of the late quartets were among the greatest ever. So this is definitely worth hearing. It's an extraordinary performance. And then we've got Haydn, the 7 last words, not in its original version for orchestra, not in the string quartet version, not in the piano version, not in the choral version, but rather as arranged for a string orchestra. And that's a whole different experience. Now, I wasn't particularly fond of this recording, I have to say, because my feeling was if Haydn arranged it for full orchestra, just play the orchestral version. Why would you, sort of juice up the string quartet version for string orchestra? But that's what he had on hand, so that's what he did. There's nothing wrong with the arrangement itself. If you have no problem with the concept, then it's an absolutely splendid performance. It really is. I have a problem with the concept. That's me. And you may well disagree. I certainly have no issues with the musicianship or with, Végh's interpretation. So it's kind of interesting, I would say, to have rather than necessary. Then we've got Schubert Symphonies 5, 6, 8, and 9, or 5, 6, 7, and 8, depending on how you count them. 5 and 6 are uncontroversial. We know what they are. And 8 is the unfinished, and 9 is the Great C Major Symphony. These are phenomenal performances. Magnificent Schubert. And, the test of anybody in Schubert is how they handle the Great C Major Symphony. I mean, is it a chore? Is it boring as heck? Or is it thrilling? Well, Végh is thrilling. He really is. Some of you, in fact, when I did my Schubert 9th sort of Dave's Faves video and summary and all that stuff, some of you mentioned, that I should include Sándor Végh among the great ones with Zell and Munch and all those people, And you're right. I should. It is a performance of completely effortless, vivid life. The whole piece seems to play itself. And, if you know this work, you know just what a compliment that is, because this is not a piece of music that normally plays itself. It needs help, usually lots of help. But to be able to play it like it's not getting any help and doesn't need the help and simply just flows like a giant, mighty torrent, like a force of nature, that is a great performance. And this is one of those. It was marvelous. Then we get the Brahms String Quintet number 2, Opus 111, arranged for string orchestra, along with Schoenberg's Verklärte Nacht in the string orchestra version. This is a wonderful coupling. I mean, Brahms and Schoenberg kind of go together because Schoenberg regarded himself as the natural successor to Brahms. Whether he was or wasn't is, I leave it to you to decide. But the Brahms string quartets are very, very lovely works that are really neglected. In general, Brahms chamber music without piano after the sextets tends to be kind of ignored. I mean, the string quartets are kind of difficult and I think kind of overwritten. And the string quintets are not. I think they're just beautiful pieces, but they're very late Brahms. And late Brahms is an acquired taste, usually, because it tends to be somewhat reserved emotionally, somewhat austere, perhaps a little bit autumnal or glum even. But I think these quintets are absolutely lovely. And having an opportunity to hear them in a string orchestra version, I think could make some new friends for them, because the extra weight of tone gives them just perhaps a little bit more, what's the word? It sugars the pill a little bit, I would say. Not that the pill needs sweetening particularly, but it doesn't hurt, especially if you're unfamiliar with the works. And if you like Schoenberg's Transfigured Night, well, you're in business. And then we have disc 6, the Bartók Divertimento. Fantastic, fabulous. As you might expect, I mean, Végh was a good friend of Bartók's. They knew each other well. And then you've got the Berg Lyric Suite and Stravinsky's Apollon Musagette, the Apollo Ballet. This is a wonderful disc of contemporary music. You've got everybody who matters in the world of modern music in the first half of the 20th century. You have the sort of nationalist folk avant-garde. You've got the Second Viennese School. And you've got Stravinsky and neoclassicism, all on one handy disc, all splendidly played. I mean, this is one of those sets. It's inexpensive. It's wonderfully well recorded. Végh was one of the great musicians of the 20th century, not as well known as he should have been because he spent his career first as a quartet player and then in the background as a teacher, just transmitting what he knew. But what he knew was really something special. And it's not something that there are many like him who could be doing this again. So every record he made in its way is important and valuable for its musicianship and its lesson in what the aesthetics of Western music ought to be. Period. Instrument people, take note. This is a guy who really knew what the stuff is supposed to sound like. And his performances are extraordinary. So you really ought to hear this. And that is my recommendation. Keep on listening, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Take care.